Okay, welcome back. We're having another program and a secondary posture here from Lawrence Gray, former New York State prosecutor, and from Greg Fischer, the children's lobbyist on the political corruption that exists in this state. You know, it occurs to me that we all go to the voting booth, and there's a tremendous amount of voter apathy, But this information that you've given us on the prior program, and I'm hoping you'll do here in the remaining 10 to 15 minutes, is what's our problem? Why are we having such a difficult time understanding what it is to vote? Who are we voting for? Do we know? It just seems like nobody's out of touch. As much as I know, and I think I know a lot, I still don't know anything.
Let's take the presidential election off the table.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about the presidency or the U.S. Congress or Senate. Let's talk about your state senator, your state assemblyman, your local town council person. First thing, if you want people to vote intelligently, they have to be informed. That means you have to have credible, honest sources of information. You don't have that. Here's an example. People have their local papers, the Smithtown Messenger, the Smithtown News. The Smithtown Messenger gets its legal ad money, which keeps its doors open, a couple of $100,000 a year, through Suffolk County and the town of Smithtown. That's a Republican paper. It doesn't just lean Republican, it is a Republican newsletter. It will never print anything critical or even honest about an elected Republican official from Smithtown.
A political vehicle, for sure.
That's right. You're paying for their campaign flyer every week in the form of the legal ads, so they can tell you how wonderful they are. They're opening a doorknob, they're shaking a hand, they're talking with somebody, they're milking a cow, they're reading a book to a kid, all this kind of nonsense. Democratic side, Smithtown News. He gets his legal ads, money, from the Democrats through the county legislature and the town. He's never ever going to report misfeasance on the part of a Democratic office holder. He's always going to tell you things are hunky-dory, and the only time you'll get criticism is if it's a Republican. So, in terms of a voter going into the booth, first of all, he or she starts off thinking they actually know something about their state senator or their assemblyman or the county legislator or the town councilman, when in fact they know very little about it, and they only know half the story. The only time they find out the real story is if somebody is literally caught with their pants down in flagrante delicto. Then everybody understands the sex angle. But as long as you don't get caught, so to speak, with your pants down, once you're in office, you can pretty much stay as long as you go along.
And don't get caught.
And don't get caught. As long as you feed out the money and take care of the right groups, you got it. You're in.
What did you want to say, Greg, before?
Well, it's basically time to vote out a lot of these incumbents. We don't have term limits. We have to exercise our vote to get them out.
We can exercise our own term limits by...
Yeah, and change the players. We're never going to have true term limits. We're never going to have good representation as long as we keep voting for the same schnooks. And even to show up and cast a no vote, to show up in New York State, we have a nice big red lever. So you pull the curtain closed, you write in your own name, pull it back, and tell everybody you're voting for none of the above. You have to pull at least one lever. Otherwise, you can't pull the big red one back. So vote right in your own name. Show up. The other thing that starts to happen here is people really don't appreciate that anybody can run. So if it was, you could draft Larry. You could be drafted to run. Somebody in the family that you think would be a great legislator.
People have the notion that you need a lot of money.
And it's not an elite. This is we the people. So you can go out and get 1,000 signatures. It's really not that difficult to change the assemblyman you have, or 2,000 signatures to change the senator you have.
I've spoken to a lot of people who wanted to run for office and had a very difficult time getting signatures and things like that.
Well, it's a lot if you have a little group, and it's a lot easier than you think. Actually, it can be done. I mean, we did it with Stuart Meltzer for family court judge in Nassau County. We started our own little party, because we didn't learn fast enough over there on how to work the major parties. But this year he'll be on a major party ticket. So this is not a game of elites. This is we the people. It's set up so you can get into it, and that's what we have to start to do. We have to exercise our citizenship.
In my opinion, the civic education is severely lacking in the public school system, especially in the high school level, where it should be begun to be understood. Right. Whose responsibility was that, and how was it that it was removed from the bulk of the education system?
That's a very good question.
Great question.
I can tell you something. A number of years ago, I volunteered on my own time through some teachers in the Kings Park School District. I said, I will come into the school, for those that are interested, free, and I will take every word that is in the United States Constitution, and without being political, I will explain to them why the Founding Fathers put those words in the Constitution. In other words, bring the British history so they would understand what is in that Constitution. They came to my house, everything looked like it was beautiful, and then I learned through the grapevine that the local teachers union didn't like that. They don't like somebody who has a Juris Doctorate, who's been a prosecutor close to 30 years, who's actually been out there practicing, who's written law books. They didn't want this guy coming in, working for nothing, stealing their thunder, I suppose.
I'm hearing socialism.
Well, socialism or protectionism, you know, the medieval system had those terrible guilds where they controlled the product as well as the wages. Well, is the teachers union today any different from a medieval guild?
Sounding like it, yeah.
Yeah.
What's your take on the schools? So I know you had some conversation with me about that.
Well,
we only have about 4 or 5 minutes left here, so.
Okay, well, basically we do have to do civics education. We do have to encourage students, especially as college students, to get them involved in the process, encourage them to get involved in doing this kind of research. What do political science courses actually do? What do political science and pre-law classes actually do? They're indoctrination possibly into the status quo, but we've lost our ability to question the status quo. And people are resigned, and it can't be that way anymore. I mean, we're really losing our freedoms, and
the more we stay out of touch, the more we become out of touch.
Exactly. We're getting more and more isolated, and that's the problem. We need to encourage free thought. We can't encourage compliance, or, you know, memory by rote, regurgitating textbooks. We have to have people get out. There has to be more internship programs, and for people to actually see, and students to actually see what's actually going on.
Political knowledge is extremely weak. Do you have any last-minute comment that we can make on that subject?
I'd like to quote something from Louis Brandeis. He wrote a great dissent in a decision dealing with the First Amendment right of free speech. And what he emphasized was not so much the free speech, but the obligation on a citizen's part to speak out. That's why you have the free speech. How do you speak out? You write the proverbial letter. And for the viewers out there, if you see something wrong, you write a letter to that public official. Everyday English, no holds barred language, and make sure you float that letter over the internet to every newspaper you can find. So when the public official gets the letter, it's not one-on-one, but the public official knows that everybody else, as far as he knows, is getting a copy of that letter. And believe me, it has an effect.
And to the other side.
And to the other side.
Yeah, if there's opposition, as well as to their peers.
Friend and foe alike.
Yeah, their peers could be very influential in the process because they don't want the light getting shown on them.
Otherwise, you get a letter back saying, "Oh, dear Mr. Madger, yes, we've taken your views into consideration," the usual stuff that some $50 a week clerk writes. But if on the bottom of that letter they see CC to all your enemies as your friends, and also the media networks, even if the paper doesn't print the letter, that reporter, that paper, has learned something about you, the public official politician, that maybe it's going to come up in a question or something like that.
And even if they're booked and they're heavy and they got a heavy news story day, they can hold that out there. Sooner or later, they're going to get to that topic because it's a hot topic.
We have to remember this is a legacy. Government is a legacy. And this is no different than leaving your house or an insurance policy to your children. This is, if you don't have freedom, if you don't have a pure process in the legislature or in the judiciary, you've left that legacy. And what is worth more? What is worth more? We're so obsessed with the material things and what we're going to leave in material to our children and future generations. If we don't leave a fair and just system, we've left them nothing.
Very well put, Greg. Thank you very much. This segment's over. Thank you very much. You can lock it out. Thanks, guys.
Good.
Appreciate
Great.
it. Hey, good.
Well,
this was
fun.
cool. It was cool.
Thank you.